Hi, everybody. Welcome to Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas for your Detroit Red Wings, right? Finally have a home. What's the shirt I'm wearing? All right.
Yeah.
I got my pillowcase jersey on. Mike's got his Red Wings shirt on.
Yeah.
I have that same shirt.
Really? The Reebok one?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
recognize the font, because it's such a weird Red Wings font.
Yeah, it might be see-through, so I hope I don't get like a write-up at work for wearing it all day today.
Showing off your
But yeah, welcome everybody. You got Jim Johnson throwing in Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah.
I saw Greg Wyshynski posted today that according to Larry David, this is the last day you can wish everyone a Happy New Year. A little bit of trivia there. It's
Except
January 3rd. Yeah, in fact, at first, if it was just from Wyshynski, I probably would have just rolled my eyes. But
if it was from our Lord and Savior, Larry David.
Yeah. Poobah, Larry David.
Yeah.
I happily accept that as truth. Jared has bounced away to go get one of his kids from basketball practice.
Hopefully his own kid. Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Kids aren't happy. The family, we're trying something different today. So, Mike, I've woken up the kids a few episodes in a row. So it's not bedtime yet. So we're going to push bedtime back. And we're going to record now and see what happens.
Okay.
Bit of future programming. Matt will not be able to record next week. So we'll definitely be out next week. Matt is going to be on a work trip in Phoenix, so wish me luck for all you Wings fans out in Phoenix. Hit us up on Twitter. Let me know where I should go take a bite, a bite to eat, and eat to bite.
Jim is sipping on a cold one. Jim, I have a Coke Zero, and then I made my cinnamon simple syrup because they refuse to mass produce cinnamon Coke, so I'm making it myself. And it is delightful. It's really good.
I would say most underrated soda of all time. I like that got me to the point where I was back addicted to soda, where I had like sworn it off. I was done. Yeah. Like I used to chug Dr. Pepper like crazy, and I'm still able to push that away. But if cinnamon Coke came back, I would be.
Oh yeah.
I'd be back aboard, 100%.
Matt, what I'm going to be addicted to in the near future here is I don't see a slide for it. Breaking news: Andrew Kopp was not at practice today.
Well, I mean, we could jump into the Andrew Kopp stuff first because I saw he was trending on Twitter again today, and the conversation had been why you can't waive or buy out Andrew Kopp. Waiving would be tough. It's a lot of money he'd be saying goodbye to if you're hoping for like a Zadina type situation. So this isn't the right slide. That's our standings. It was something we brought up. This was a week ago. We were introduced to Puck IQ that had the deployment statistic. And we were talking about Mo Sider, Jake Wallman. Also, very mad at everybody in the Discord who, like, the next day they were like, guys, check out Puck IQ. It's actually got some pretty cool data. And I was like, guys, we just shared it last night. What are you talking about? But anyway, shared earlier today was Puck IQ and how Andrew Kopp is deployed so often against elite talent. So basically what I pulled up here just to kind of say, like, guys, I get it. He does get deployed against elite talent. So for everybody that's watching on YouTube, just want to call out that where you want to be on this chart is to the as high as possible and to the furthest to the right as possible. Mike, if you had to look at this chart of Andrew Kopp, let's not talk about what the what the axes are yet. Let's just talk about how you want to be to the top right. If you had to kind of eyeball it, and my arrow is pointing at Andrew Copp's circle, where would you say Andrew Copp's circle lands?
Well, it's if it's on that side, Matt, that looks pretty good. I see Connor Bedard right there.
Also, probably the worst name on the list is Michael Rasmussen. If you look just to the, right below Connor Bedard is Rasmussen.
So we basically have two Connor Bedards on our team. I think that's pretty good.
100%. You nailed it. We're just as defensively responsible as a rookie in the NHL. No, I mean, Mike hasn't said it yet, but Andrew Copp isn't the most is not the furthest to the bottom or furthest to the left, but just to kind of call out the use of these deployment statistics and focusing on one area. This is when you take one extra step and say, sure, all these folks are deployed against elite talent. However, what are you bringing to the ice and what are you giving up? There's quite a few guys that do a little bit better than Andrew Copp. I would say about 85% of this graph when comparing. Now this is the Fenwick 4 percentage, but they've created on Puck IQ the dangerous Fenwick 4 percentage. Andrew Copp's at 40.4%. You can also see if you go farther down the chart, a guy like JT Compher deployed a little bit more than our good friend Andrew Copp and comes at a 45%. And of course, Dylan Larkin is at 50%, who's only a couple points deployed below Andrew Copp. So clearly it is possible. And what you're looking for, ladies and gentlemen, is some more balance. So here's the thing. I get it. He's deployed a lot, and they want him on a defensive mindset first. I don't even want to say he's on a defensive mindset. Where they trust him more is on the defensive side of the puck. But clearly there are quite a few more guys who could replace Andrew Copp in the NHL who also face elite talent and do not just get absolutely dogged and stuck in their zone.
What did you say that x-axis was, the DFF?
That is the dangerous Fenwick 4. It's like a dangerous scoring chance against. So those are how many dangerous scoring chances are you putting on net compared to how many you're giving up?
I see a lot of Edmonton on the right side there, Matt. Nugent Hopkins, McJesus.
Yeah.
It's my first time. Mr. Hyman himself and Draisaitl is kind of over there too. Are we surprised that the time on ice against the elite players? Are we surprised that Copp isn't higher? Like, it looks like it's at about 35%.
I believe you're right. I think you can actually see he's at 36.4%.
Oh, okay.
A guy like Alex Wenberg is on this list too, 44.1%. It's just one of those things where it's like, I get it, and the huge argument is how he gets deployed. But guys, let's calm down on how often someone's deployed and look at the performance when they're actually doing it. And there are guys who also get deployed against elite talent, so it just works out a little bit better for some than others. And I don't know. I'll say this. This is all I wanted to say about Andrew Copp, because this was specifically a chart I saw pulled out on Twitter to say all of you who challenge Andrew Copp's skill are wrong. I came to the same chart, clicked one extra button, and hey, here you go. For all of you listening who would love to continue to, for some reason, take up arms to do the Andrew Copp battle. Again, he's not the worst player in the NHL.
That's Rasmussen.
Michael Rasmussen is.
Yeah. No, I guess we've been harping on Copp, right? It takes, many seasons to recover from core surgery, as we've learned from Andrew Copp.
Right.
We're in year
decades away from complete repair of the
core recovery. Yeah, and Matt, it looks like this graph looks, we basically debunked that he is useful.
And Dan, just to reiterate, Dan B asks, so tell me how this chart is supposed to make me feel. It's supposed to make you feel sad.
Feel sad, Dan.
Yeah, just what you want, Dan, are folks who, at least from the average point, are to the right and a little bit higher, and you're not performing as well when you're to the left and a little bit lower. And this is from your defensive deployment. Any hoozles. All right. I think that's enough cop dumping, but Mike, you brought it up, so I thought let's knock it out. Let's get it out of here. How about some good news?
Oh, I like good news.
If I go
no,
up
I mean,
one
just
more.
because Cop, we'd be able to fill his roster spot if he's not playing with another Burger cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
why not?
I don't know how many more times I'm going to keep harping on Jerry Lawler because, hey, that's my pick. That's my pick.
Now, when you said that, I was thinking that actually was your pick, Mike. You actually picked Axel Sandin. And when Jerry was doing that in WWE, he was changing what his Royal Rumble pick was every couple of minutes. So I didn't know. I like the sentiment, but I don't agree with you, Mike. You aren't Jerry Lawlering it. You fairly and adamantly said over and over you wanted Axel to be a Detroit Red Wing. And Mike, I pulled a couple quotes, and this is I forget who asked for the Axel episode a couple of weeks ago, but it just didn't make sense with all the turmoil these last few weeks. But clearly, it makes sense after Axel puts in a game-winning goal for Sweden in the IIHF World Juniors.
I missed reading these for a while because we've been so wrapped up in the Red Wings potentially being a playoff team. Like I haven't paid attention to the prospects as much. But now as our season has kind of swirled into the toilet, I've gotten these articles by The Athletic back up. They're really good with like 2 fingers of neat scotch and then like a bottle of hand lotion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's been really, really good this year. I mean, wow. Oh, I had Erik Karlsson at the same age, and actually, he's a little bit like Eric. Oh, he's a little bit the same. No, if they make a mistake, they don't worry about it. They just keep on doing their thing. Oh. Axel, very good. His ceiling very high. His ceiling is basically like he could be one of the best players in the world. There's a long way to go to become that, but he has all the tools. And then he falls asleep. And then my favorite thing was that we asked Pierre Johnson, an assistant coach, focusing on the defenseman with his team. I'm not going to let you guys hear me butcher the name of that municipality about him. And he responded with Mr. Poopy Butthole. Ooh, wee!
I love that.
Direct quote, Mr. Poopy Butthole, the coach over in Sweden. But yeah, basically saying that, this isn't just him spanking kids. He's going to have a huge impact on Detroit for the future. I really believe that. I think he's going to be a difference maker in the NHL for sure. This guy just can't stop scoring goals as a defenseman, man. He's a machine.
Yeah, and we have another set of quotes here, but I'm sorry, these are some stats. So with the Skellefteå, where he has 25 games in his post-draft season, he has where are we at? To lead all SHL defensemen, 13 points. Leads all under 19 SHL skaters. You could see it before the SHL season even began in earnest in the 3 more goals and 5 more points he posted in the CHL. Only one other under 19 defenseman has a single point in the SHL so far this season. The only other 18-year-old defenseman who is a regular on an SHL club is Sharks prospect Axel Landon. So actually, we see what the common denominator that is there.
Yeah. If you have a sweet name, you're gonna be a sweet player.
Where are we at? Sandin Pelika's 9 goals are 2 back of the SHL record for an under 19 defenseman, and he'll have 21 games left this season to score those 2 goals when he returns from the World Juniors. Victor Hedman's points record for an under 19 defenseman of 21 is within reach.
Wow, too. That's pretty cool.
How do you feel? Doesn't hurt to get
that. Well, they're saying that he's a hell of a point scorer as a defenseman. As much grief as we give this current Red Wings defensive core, they're not bad at scoring. looking at Ghost Bear, looking at Cider. I was hoping to read just a few more details about him being a lockdown defender, but I guess we don't care about stopping people, and the only way we're going to win is by scoring 4 goals a game, and this guy's definitely going to contribute to that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a little tongue in cheek, but you are right there. I mean, one of the things that was mentioned in the description of his play was like he makes mistakes, but you know what? He doesn't even care about them because he knows he's gonna make up for them. Which here's the thing, Mike. I also just played the game of like I'm ragging on Andrew Kopp. So as long as I'm getting more offense than you're giving up, I would say from a defenseman that we're looking to emulate, maybe an entire career. I don't mind that the conversation has gone to Erik Karlsson, but also doesn't hurt to have Victor Hedman in there. But we know those. There's a couple extra things that get tossed in with the Victor Hedman conversation.
Again, yes. Thank you for mentioning the tongue in cheek. We know how much this team has struggled defensively, but yeah, it makes you feel pretty optimistic. Oh, thank you, Crimson Shadow 94, my man.
Jim thrown in there. Axel's had a great year at the SHL and Juniors tournament. Of course, Jim talking about Axel Landon there. Just kidding.
Yeah. Jerseys, huh? Makes you think about a certain Rose Bowl victory, huh? Yeah.
There was one quote in this article that bothered me, and it was from one of the coaches, and maybe if it wasn't in this article, it was another, but I saw it in the last couple of days in Sweden, was he'll be ready for the NHL after another year in the SHL.
Oh, wait.
Now,
like it. Real quick.
Some SHL propaganda there.
Real quick. Dan B saying, good to know the folks at Grand Rapids will be enjoying Axel play for the next 3 years. Vomit. Hi, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing that Dan actually brings up a good point, because we were having these similar conversations with Edmondson. I mean, it was a few years ago that we were reading, similar articles about it was the level of improvement that Scott Wheeler wrote about for William Wallander. So it's like, these are all great words to read. I think, Mike, I'm going to steal from our old wrestling podcast and kind of talk about the difference between reading this article and what it would mean if we were reading the opposite. And, Axel gets the puck in OT and trips and turns the puck over, and the other team takes it down and wins. And the article is, I don't know if he should have been drafted to the NHL. So here's the thing. We all need to be responsible here. We don't want to get too excited because we've been reading the same articles about our sure thing, Simon Edmondson. And Dan B, little tongue-in-cheek there with seeing him play in Grand Rapids for the next 3 years. Absolutely a little jokey from Dan B, but some realism to mix in here is just, I think the good thing here, the thing we want to take from it is that this is the good article being written, not the opposite. Let's not get too excited. I think things look good, but they've looked good in the past for other prospects, so we need to be responsible. But also, this is cool.
One other cool thing that really made me laugh, Jared with an early bid for a comment of the episode, tagging Crimson, who said, love that Carter's been showing up. Finally, someone on the same prospect pool does something that isn't named ED. Obviously talking about, our boy. And Jared saying, I misread and thought you said a prospect that doesn't have erectile dysfunction. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. And then Jim Johnson saying, can you imagine if Lalone was the hockey version of Dan Campbell? We'd be having much different episodes because we'd be undefeated, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to talk about it for too long, but at least to the point of Dan Campbell, I think Dan Campbell is such a special coach that he's going to take that Dallas Cowboys game for the Lions there and turn that into their, guys, we can't have another game where it's a 1-point score. You have to kill everyone we face in the playoffs. And I I saw a snippet from Amon Ra's the Sun Gods podcast where he had Hutch guest, and they were both just like, "Yeah, man, I'm ready to run through 4 layers of brick walls right now. Like, we're gonna kill everybody." And it's a hell of a podcast to watch. Probably not as entertaining as the Kelsey podcast, but like that's the kind of thing that Dan brings. And I know right now we're not like writing off Lalone, but you know, there's a part of you that imagines when he comes in the locker room between periods, he just goes, "Meh." Like,
I mean, yeah, he waddles in all mad. Yeah. I know.
No. And we've seen him get angry, but
I don't know. Who's that badass coach we wanted last year from the Europe League? What was his name? Magnus?
that was 2 years ago. No, you're thinking of Hellberg.
You know who I'm
Yeah.
talking about. He had a
Yeah,
really
I
cool
know.
name.
You
We'll
know
think
I
of
have
it
the
later.
worst
We'll
memory.
remember
Yeah,
later.
who cares?
And then another attempt at, or bid, I should say, at comment of the episode. Crimson saying, "I'm certain Zadina has ED at this point." And then Jared said Zadina is shooting blanks. Thank you.
Jared, damn,
Coming in hot.
2 for 2. Okay. But also, you know, besides kind of combating the cop conversation that was being had earlier, and I don't know, the more celebratory news that Axel's just blowing up as like a national story. We also had the Red Wings kind of pause the plummeting, if I may. I don't know. I mean, you kind of went like win, loss, win. So I missed last night's game. Had to watch a condensed version because Matt and the whole family have been dealing with the flu, so that was fun.
Wow.
But now we sit in the 12th spot, Mike, in the Eastern Conference. Granted, you look at the 8th spot, 2 points out. However,
with 3 games in hand.
Yep, that's what I was about to say. You hit the nail right on the head there. A lot of games played, Mike. And these are teams that more than likely will go 500, right? Or pretty close to 500 in those makeup games. So it's going to take a bit of a streak here to catch back up. And we've gone through the schedule a little bit here to try and find some wins. And jokingly, last week
feel
we
really
came up with
bad.
2.
I feel really bad about how much you had to stretch this graphic. Like, it's basically the Red Wings point in the standings. It's like you had to get a slide whistle, like, and just go all the way down to 12.
Yeah, I had to shrink the web page to 75% to be able to get that screenshot there. And the Red Wings, just to make a relevant rectangle. This is officially the rectangle of relevancy, Mike. It stops at the 12.
Starts at the 12th seed and you work your way up.
Yeah. Well, look, it's still a respectable 526 point percentage, right? Like
and we still have a positive goal differential.
Very true. Very true.
You know, the Capitals at -17. Ooh, don't like that.
That's
Islanders
right.
-10. Don't like that. So, I mean, you know, there's still some teams we can leapfrog there. I'm not throwing Tampa in that bucket because they had that awful, what was his name? Jonas Johansson as their goalie, and he just let in like 8 goals a game. So once things even back out with Vasilevsky, that's, you know, that's not gonna be negative for much longer.
That's true, and Jim does remind everybody, like we tried there, that the January schedule is very tough. Dan B, the Wings are playing 1980s hockey in 2024. Now, are we hoping? Does that mean we're winning like 6-5 every night, 7-6? Is that the hope? Because here's one thing I did pull up for everyone is our goalies. These last couple of months, Alex Lyon, when we were our most successful in November, his goals saved above expected over 5. In December, he was around -3. James Reimer, he was in the positive, around +1.5. For everybody paying attention, watching on YouTube, and now sits at close to a -8 in December. And Ville Husso was a minus and a minus, but actually improved a little bit as the year went on. Was a hard minus, and then got it pretty close to zero by the end of December, or the end of his before his injury, the end of his campaign in December. It's not great, and I think this is to show that nobody's been too consistent for us. I think even Lion last night did turn in a negative number in the win versus the Sharks. So it's January's not off to a hot start. We could have included that in there, but that's just a couple of days. So goalie's not doing great. I think this is a good representation that, with all the losing we do, and I know this isn't new, but our defense is a problem. I titled this episode Detroit Red Wings 2024 Hopes. I gotta think the hopes are either Lion can get back to what his numbers were, or we're adding to this team, because I know a lot of people have been saying on social media, do you really want to lose anything that's in our prospect pool to just try and improve this team? Or, Mike, is the 2024 hope to just sneak in, to just get the goaltending to start to average out, even out a little bit? Or are we hoping to sort of force the issue here? Add to this team, make it a little bit better.
I got to say, like, best case scenario feels like sneaking in. I mean, like, not necessarily for the outlook of the team, because it still feels like we're a couple high-end draft picks away from like mattering when the playoffs start. I just mean, if your ultimate goal as Yzerman, the GM, explaining to the fan base, explaining to his boss, the owner, things are going quite well. They're actually going quite well. I know we give up a crap ton of goals, and as our friend who pays attention to the Red Wings Rant podcast stated, we really like the 1980s. A lot of good movies came out of then. Back to the Future, The Thing, love those movies. Ghostbusters, 1984, right? Van Halen, good year. So we're going to model our team after that, and we're just going to stop playing any kind of defense at all. So I think we're right on track. Right on track for the 80s. And we're actually going to be putting in a bid to reduce the size of goalie pads once again, to see if we can pepper home some more goals. Now look at this chart is important, right? Because I think it does prove that Lion, had a solid month. Reimer actually wasn't awful, right, in November, but Husso maybe crawling back a little bit in December, but eyeball test, Matt. It's tough to totally pile on all of our goalies when there's so many blown assignments defensively. There's at least 2 to 3 little league soccer plays where it feels like there's 3 or 4 Red Wings on the boards watching the puck and not covering anybody on the goalies, on the opposite side of the net. So it definitely feels like our offense was in pretty good shape, and we picked up Patrick Kane, and it's still, basically been humming along. Sure, we had a few games where we only scored, a goal or none, but every team's going to go through a little swoon. But we're still able to score, comfortably when we win 4 goals, which is wild. It has to be for Yzerman. God damn it. We have to find a way to bring in like an actual defenseman who can play 15 to 20 minutes and, not make it feel like our goalie's on his own. So as important as this chart is to kind of put in perspective what our netminder's been doing, it's I would say more bleak defensively what we've been doing as a team.
Now, Jared throws out there, it's Ricard Gronberg. The name we were trying to think of before.
Thank you, Jared. God bless you.
Do we take a macro level look at this? And Dan B says, before the season, the Wings were always a coin toss to make the playoffs. Do we accept that as truth? And I would argue, and Danby's point is maybe the correct way. Like we've gone week after week asking for another move if this team was really something we were supposed to believe in, but maybe that's just it. Maybe we weren't supposed to believe in this. We were supposed to pull back. And to which, I mean, the question changes completely. That there's the idea, like, yes, we were a coin flip to make the playoffs. We don't want to force too much here to get in because it's not that important to us. So then in reality, and this is where the hot takes start flying and people get angry, then in reality, your general manager asked you to put up with one more shit season. Which is fine. He can ask us to do that, and we can all be patient and just twiddle our thumbs. But at what point do we start to trust that the moves will start coming in? At some point, your prospect pool will show that not every single guy in it is a full-time NHLer for 20 years. Right? Right. Yeah, that's what happens for every single prospect pool in the NHL since the NHL draft started. So you had opportunities to move some of those guys, and I would argue we haven't made too many big moves. We've traded some draft picks, brought in DeBrincat, but not enough. So that's where the bigger question comes in. If this was supposed to be another ho-hum, let's see what happens season. And then what happens next with the draft? Pick in the 15s and the teens?
Based on this patient approach, the lack of movement, does that to us signal that Yzerman thinks this is just a mental thing and it's just something the team has to figure out? Like that he doesn't feel an immediate need to, I better, see what kind of goalies I can, pluck off the waiver wire or see if I can actually trade for somebody, worth a darn.
Yeah.
Or see if I can, swap one of these, first or second round offensively angled prospects for, maybe somebody NHL ready to play defense. We haven't really seen that. So does that mean that he thinks that it's just like almost like a team chemistry thing? Like they just got to figure it out, put their heads together? Because we've seen some stretches where they weren't completely god awful defensively. And I feel like that's when they were kind of taking more pucks, like blocking more shots. It doesn't feel like that's a priority right now. It feels like kind of led by James Reimer's head. Let's try to get out of the way of some of these pucks. They hurt.
And Jared throws out there, December was brutal, playing a game every other day. But I don't disagree with that. But I think to the extent that your record got to and how bad you looked defensively, I wonder if it was more or less you got exposed for what the real problems were on this team and not necessarily that the schedule was unfair. I would say team ready to go. Probably doesn't fall as deep in the hole in the standings as we did. And maybe that's the point. That's part of the point, like you're making, Jared, like we would have been on a better track to kind of, 500 our way, into January, February, if this weren't the case, but it was the case. And now we were exposed and we definitely couldn't handle that type of play. But, we did, it's that we had the injuries. But it just kind of seems like there's so many things. Like then it was the turnovers on the power plays and giving up all these shorthanded goals. It reminded me of the Tigers in the 2006 finals, and they just couldn't complete a pickoff throw to third base or any. Do you remember that? Like that's what that reminded me of. We had those couple of weeks, and the Tigers, in the World Series, could not throw to third base. Just couldn't do it. Every time they attempted the third from the pitcher's mound, it would go into the stands. And that's what it felt like every time we turned the puck over on the power play at the point, and then it was a shorthanded goal. And we would watch Reimer give his best effort, watch Husso give his best effort, but ultimately it was going to be a goal. So those kind of things kind of piled up, and it does kind of seem like circumstantial, but at some point, like the law of averages and the circumstances, break against each other. And maybe that's what the couple of wins was. And we were really just having that horrid of a time that we still managed to find a couple wins in there. But it's something that has to be taken into account. But, I'm just fearful that our next excuse is going to be like, Jared, what you brought up earlier, and I don't disagree. Our next excuse is just going to be, well, January is super tough. It's like, yeah, but you had to play all these teams eventually. So these games are going to happen either in January, February, March, or April. So, I mean, like, my opinion can change if we go through January and we play all these teams, not only tough, but we win. I wouldn't say that there were so many games where we were just completely out of it, start to finish, that, I couldn't pay attention in the third period. That happened a few times, but it didn't happen every game. But, winning team's going to win. There was another one mentioned in here I liked. Crimson thrown out there. The fact all the games we won are 4 goals and above is impressive offensively, but also very sad. We need 4 goals to win at all. And, we're talking about, what are the Red Wings' hopes for this year? Maybe we'll get in the comments after the recording here. The hopes are that we don't trade any draft picks or prospects, and we continue to see what goes on here. Our hope is that we don't feel the pressure to move into the playoffs. And why? I'll say this type of hockey doesn't really win Stanley Cups too often, does it? I think you could make the argument that the Golden Knights had a balanced offense that could score on you in droves, but there was a little bit more top end skill that could be counted on.
Yeah. I did want to touch on performance art, saying even good teams have a hard schedule. That's a loser's mentality, especially in hockey, because it's not the NFL, right? Where the Lions this season are kind of taking advantage of the easier version of what their schedule is going to be like next year, because they won so many games this year. Like, the schedule gets redispersed and you play, more difficult teams or teams that won a lot more games this season, next season. The NHL doesn't do that. You play everybody like 2 to 4 times. So you knew this was coming. There's no surprises. It's not like, oh man, we got extra games against, like Buffalo or something.
What was arguably surprise for Kane? He came aboard and he looked at the schedule and was like, my hip though.
Is that Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack? Oh, my arm! It's somebody else in here.
Got to get those eyeballs twirling.
Yeah.
I think it would be fair right now to land on there isn't like a clear answer to this. Right. Like, I mean, January could go really well. I think we were looking at like mid-November, and then all of a sudden we started racking up good games against New York and in Boston. So, maybe we're trying to define the whole season a little too early, which there's people right now listening to the podcast tomorrow and going, yes, exactly. What are you doing? But that's what, God damn it. That's what this podcast is for, to make hot takes that get us in trouble in the long run. But ultimately, when we look back, get to pat ourselves on the back. So I think it's fair to say there isn't a real answer to this right now, but I think there's enough evidence that we're even saying back in October, Mike, like, before we had Patrick Kane, like I was making the argument, like, you don't just add Patrick Kane, you add Patrick Kane. And, at the time, maybe a little tongue in cheek, quite a bit of honesty baked on top of bringing in Mr. Elias Pettersson. Obviously, Vancouver's off to such a great start they're not going to even sniff that trade.
Who
But
says
that was like
no?
that's
Yeah,
but that's
Vancouver
where
says no twice. Yeah.
but that's where we were at, right? Like we knew back then. We knew back in October. Yeah, add Patrick Kane, sure. But you'd also have to do this. I don't think we were counting on as much offense as we got because we should have probably been playing that game with defensemen. But maybe Calgary's got a couple of guys that we can continue to explore and look at. I'm less of a Chris Tanev fan than most, but I challenge everyone to take a second beat and sniff around Noah Hannafin. We have, I think Jim mentioned in here again, like we have too many third pairing defensemen. So I think we want to replace Jeff Petrie as fast as possible, but Noah Hannafin's going to be another left side defenseman. But I don't think that hurts anything. I think you could still try and even out some of the pain here by adding in a Noah Hannafin, who maybe not this season is showing the greatest of possession statistics, but over multiple seasons, the last few years, he has been at least in the top 75%. So, or I should say he's right. Like how do you say that? You know what I'm saying? Positively top 75%. Like there's only 25% above him. Does everybody understand? Am I saying that right? I'm not saying he's in the bottom 20. Okay. We get it. Mike's just nodding.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the thing, y'all. Part of starting at 7:00 today so the kids could fall asleep is that I also had to stop at around 7:40, and we're at 7:44.
Oh, no.
So, we're gonna kind of bounce around real quick here to kind of wrapping up the episode, but I challenge y'all to join the Discord, follow along in the show description, if you may, if you haven't joined the Discord yet. And let's continue the conversation there. Let's talk tonight. We'll talk tomorrow if you're joining on the podcast. But let's talk about what your Red Wings 2024 hopes are. Is it a new goalie, a new defenseman, a combo, or are you just hopeful nothing gets touched and we maybe luck our way through some injuries across the field into the playoffs?
I would just like us to stop making Simon Edvinsson drive around Beer City, and let's bring him to Grown Up City in Detroit, and give him a full-time job, because he does not make nearly enough mistakes to warrant his being far, far away on the west side of Michigan. He should be on the east side with the rest of us.
That's actually a really good one. You could say your wish for 2024 is a full new pairing in Simon Edvinsson and Axel gets brought over right away.
Oh, yeah.
That could be your 2024 wish. I'll allow it. Dan B says Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Dan B. Appreciate you coming aboard for this earlier start. Performance Arts wish. He wants to reset the whole rebuild.
Another 8 years, baby.
Dylan Larkin on the trade block for Performance Art. Jim throws out there, agreed. We want a full new Swedish pairing. Let's do it, Jim. All right, guys. Thanks for coming aboard for such a short episode. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks when I return from my trip. Love y'all. Yeah. Happy New Year. And
now we're going to talk about the Royal Rumble. I'm going to let Matt do it. Woo! Because I think The Rock's going to win this year, you guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. The Rock came back.
Yep. Oh, Blake, you're too late, bud. All right. We'll see you later.
Hey, Blake. See ya. All right. Bye, everybody.